What is going on, everybody? My name is Prodigal Lion, and if you guys have been following Naughty Dog closely for a little bit, you'll remember that months back, Bruce Straley, the lead director or co-director on The Last of Us with Neil Druckmann, Bruce left Naughty Dog, and we all knew that, and we had kind of heard about how he had been a little bit burnt out and stuff like that, but we had never really gotten a really solid reason as to why he had left Naughty Dog. But now we got an answer to that. This comes from an article on the GameSpot website, and I'm going to go ahead and link the article down into the description for any of you who want to go ahead and read the whole thing. It's not really that big of an article, but I'm just going to go ahead and cut to like the most important parts of it. So if you want to read the whole thing, I will link it down into the description. Now, simply put, the whole reason he left Naughty Dog really came down to Uncharted 4, and he says that Uncharted 4 really just burnt him out. And because the reason for that was because Uncharted 4 really didn't feel like a passion project to him as for himself as much as it felt like an obligation. And that was the first time he'd ever really felt like that on something at Naughty Dog. As you guys know, he worked on Uncharted 1, 2, Last of Us, and Uncharted 4. I think he worked on one of the Jak games like Jak Racer or something. Maybe it was Crash Racer. I don't know. He worked on one other game too. But simply put, he's just saying that this Uncharted 4 was the first thing that he just felt he was obligated to do it for the company and for the team rather than he was doing it for himself. And so after Uncharted 4 wrapped up and they launched it, he ended up taking a break. And we all knew about that. And then long story short, he ended up leaving a few months ago officially. What Bruce Straley says is he says, Uncharted 4 showed up and it was like, I guess there's a difference between doing something for yourself, which feels passionate, and I had my own theories that I was trying to expand upon between Uncharted 1, 2, and The Last of Us, and then Uncharted 4 became more like, how do I do this for the team and for the company, he said. Then he goes on and says, we needed to get the game out the door, and we needed it to be something good so that it didn't put a mark on the Naughty Dog name, he said. I felt like, I guess in hindsight, I took on that role more for the team than for me personally. 2 years to create that beast that then became the hardest project I had worked on. Furthermore, he went on to say that his departure from the studio had nothing to do with Naughty Dog, nothing to do with games. His thought after Uncharted 4 launched was, oh my god, it's time to take a break, it's just time to step away. Now, I can totally understand this because Uncharted 4 was a massive game, and one thing that this article does mention is the fact that they had a lot less time to work on Uncharted 4. I mean, Uncharted 4 was a big game, long game, a lot of technical stuff that goes into it, big good story, and they only had 2 years to work on that as opposed to The Last of Us, which they had 4 years, which at the same time, you gotta be understanding of that too though, because they worked on The Last of Us from scratch in 4 years, and they worked on Uncharted 4 kind of from middle, honestly, because as you guys remember, Amy Hennig had actually worked on it herself for about 3 years. And then she left, and that was when Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley took over. And so they kind of took away half in, and even from then, they took 2 years to complete it. Because as you guys know, they did change some of the story and change some of the things that happened. They added Nadine. Nadine wasn't originally an Amy Hennig story. So they did a lot for the game, and they did it in a little bit less of time as opposed to The Last of Us. Not only was the game itself hard to work on, but they felt like they really had to perfect it since it was the final game, and they wanted it to be good, so that they, especially following up The Last of Us. I mean, The Last of Us is arguably one of the best games in PlayStation history, probably for sure on the PlayStation 3 system, and probably Naughty Dog's best game. So they had to follow up to that huge success of The Last of Us on top of trying to do a service to the fans and the company, since Uncharted is such a beloved series. So they had to make sure that Uncharted 4 was good. Now, I know that this game had taken some stress on Bruce, but I don't really quite understand why it made him leave totally, because I do understand that he needed a break, and that is totally understandable. I mean, like when The Last of Us Part 2 was first announced, he still hadn't officially left Naughty Dog yet, but we did know he was on a break. And when The Last of Us Part 2 was announced, we found out that he actually wasn't working on it, and that all kind of seemed strange to us. So I do understand that he needed a break, but it doesn't really make sense to me why he completely left. He says it has nothing to do with Naughty Dog, but I don't know. There could be a part of him that didn't like the direction Naughty Dog was taking, maybe with The Last of Us Part 2. Who knows? Or it could be he could just totally be telling the truth, and maybe he just really did get burnt out on Uncharted 4, and he just wanted to go ahead and move on and try some other things instead. Who knows? Nonetheless, it really sucks because Bruce Straley was involved in every single one of my favorite games of all time, because I love the entire Uncharted series and The Last of Us. Well, I guess he wasn't completely involved in it. He wasn't even involved in Uncharted 3, but nonetheless, he was involved in the series. So, I don't know. It sucks that he left, and I'm still very interested in seeing what he does next. I wonder if he's going to do something just for himself, something different of like writing maybe, or maybe not writing, but so maybe he'll start a new company. Maybe he'll go to another company. I don't know. I'm very curious to see what he does next and when he does it. Whenever he does, I'll definitely bring you guys what he's been up to. That's it. Tell me what you guys think about Bruce Sterling's departure from Naughty Dog, and if you think this is a really good explanation as to why he left. I mean, it makes sense to me, I guess, but there's part of me also feels like he could have just taken a break and stayed and kept working on The Last of Us Part 2 or Naughty Dog's next IP. I don't know. Still a bummer that he left, but nonetheless, I'm excited to see what he does next. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about the whole departure of his, and like I said, if it's a good explanation as to why he left. I will see you guys in the next video.